Hello and welcome to Just Hoops. The Indiana Pacers next year have a chance to be one of the most fun and exciting teams and successful teams in the NBA. In this video, we're going to preview the upcoming season by going back to last year and talking about things that they did well and struggled with and how the new additions can help improve them. Starting with the offensive end of the floor. They had a 113.8 offensive rating. They were fourth in pace. They shot it pretty efficiently, but at the end of the day, they were pretty middle of the pack at this end of the floor. So now let's watch the film and see what they did last season. Everything for the Pacers at the offensive end last season started with getting out running, playing on the break. They had the fifth best pace. They were top 87 percentile in terms of points per possession in transition. And they had the guys that could go out and run and make plays on the break. They had multiple guys that could push the ball. Tyrese Halliburton was a masterful passer on the break, throwing it ahead. And along with that, having a ton of guards that you can trust to put the ball in their hands, along with forwards, the growth of Ben Marthurin. I think next season, with the additions that they have, specifically Jarace Walker through the draft and Bruce Brown, offer two more ball handlers that could get a ball off the glass and push it themselves. They're going to have the option and ability to have 4 to 5 guys on the floor at a time that can grab it and go for themselves. I think that the sky's the limit for them in terms of their break. In terms of schematic things that they did, if the big was ahead of the ball, he was going to run and put his head on the rim. 4 guys ran wide. If the ball was ahead of the big tended to trail to flow into their 5-out stuff. And then if the ball was ahead, you're driving, trying to get an angle to the rim, fill the corners first if you're running with the ball, and then if you're above a corner man, cut to the rim and put pressure on the rim. If you're out early, it's try to get an easy 2 at the cup. But overall, the way that the Pacers were able to get out and go, look ahead, play with each other on the break, it is what made them successful, made them so hard to guard on a consistent basis. Teams could not keep up with their pace, and just overall flow and transition, a lot of guys were on the same page, and that connectivity and just overall understanding of where to go when the ball is being pushed is big time, and a big reason why they were one of the best teams on the break last season. Next, let's talk about what I think will be the most massive part to their offensive success next year, the pick and roll. Specifically with Tyrese Halliburton, Ben Marthurin, Bruce Brown, just the overall talent that they have is a lot of guys that can do a lot of different things, both as ball handlers and screeners. But let's talk about their ball screen attack last season. Primarily, they won at middle third ball screens, whether it was a pick and pop or a regular pick and roll or playing off the short roll. Just all these things happened in the middle third, 2-man side, another side loaded in the corner, just to have that attack in the middle and force the defense to stretch themselves to both contain the ball, contain the roll, and do it that way. Most of the time they did prefer to attack the 2-man side and make that single guy side stretch a little bit. But at the end of the day, they went both directions, and it was a huge piece of their pick and roll offense was attacking out of that middle third with their big men primarily setting the ball screens and just allowing their guards to get downhill, make plays out of that middle third, whether it's a floater or pull up, if a guy goes under, knock down a 3, or just playing out of it and getting into their flow. They also did some empty side stuff that we can see here, where 3 on the fence, play on the empty side, pick and pop, pick and roll situations. Sometimes this happened in blind pick, sometimes it happened in action happen, hit the empty wing, and then play out of it in a get screen situation. But overall, there was a lot of different situations where they got to the empty side pick and roll, and it is part of their arsenal, part of their repertoire, and it was part of what they did just to create advantages, stretch the defense. We'll talk next about their goals as an offense, but overall, just having the variety that they had was massive in their success. And lastly, a huge part of their pick and roll success, and I think a huge thing going forward, will be the 3-man actions. We'll see in this next clip here, putting 3 guys in the ball screen off the away pin into a double. This next clip here, we're going to have a ram into a 77 on into an empty side and then a flip. Just really good offense with 3 guys in a ball screen action. Just the variety, the tough things that a defense has to do to just contain the ball, stay with the roller, stay with the screener. Whatever the situation applied, the Pacers did a really good job in terms of offensive creativity in these spots and the constant different looks, different flows, different get into a ball screen, different actions in general were massive in terms of throwing wrenches at defenses, making them have to think and making them have to adjust on the fly rather than it being a set thing. A lot of this was so creative and it happened in spurts. One thing that was constant though in their 5-out flow, they liked getting to Spain pick and rolls with Buddy Hield or with a shooter as the Spain guy. Just overall putting guys in situations to be successful with the pick and roll. Going into next season, as we referenced earlier, they're going to have a ton of variety possible to them with multiple screeners, multiple ball handlers, playing out of the short roll, playing with different 3-man actions, using a brush screen under a ball screen, just different things that Rick Carlisle has available to him due to the new personnel. And I'm excited to see what they do with this talent. Now to take a step back real quick and talk about the flow, spacing, and just overall principles and goals of the offense that Rick Carlisle put together last season. If you look at the personnel, they had a ton of really good ball handlers, a ton of quality shooters, and with that bunch, you have an offense where you can play with space, touch paint, drive, kick, play off of each other. So Rick Carlisle went out and created an offensive system where it was a 5-out or 4-out 1-in situation, based on transition or based on action that happened prior, and then playing out of that with appropriate spacing to have driving angles and also movement off the ball. So some things that you can see throughout these clips are the desire to touch paint. There's a lot of possessions that they had throughout individual games where they touch paint 3 or 4 times off of the dribble, and by doing that, you're forcing the defense to collapse, expand back out, collapse, expand back out, essentially yo-yoing, and the way that they did that so consistently made it so hard for teams to guard them. When they were playing good, when they were having big wins, when they went on good runs as a team, it was because the offense was able to do this with their pace and spacing that was so good and hard to slow down. And then some other constants were on the perimeter. If there was movement up the chain, you are going to automatically screen, go screen, or brush up, just creating confusion and chaos guard to guard, and always maintaining spacing though, because in all those situations you're spacing out. Another thing that they did very well in terms of creating chaos, making the defense expand and shrink again, was cutting. So on middle drives, basically paint touches, you saw more baseline cuts or 45 cuts that wrap below to the baseline. And on baseline drives, you saw cuts coming in from the 45 but around toward the top, or dives from the top of the key. Those types of things really make it challenging for defenses to stay consistent and to be able to stay in front. And going into reference next season with their new additions, with Bruce Brown, Jarace Walker, with their young guys developing, specifically Ben Marthurin, Isaiah Jackson, and then other draft picks like Ben Shepherd, just guys like that can come in, play with spacing, and also provide shooting, ball handling, decision making, playing in a variety of spots, playing off of guys, movement, slashing. All of those skills are seen on their roster already, and the strengths of the guys that are already there are basically within this offense. You can see a ton of guys that are high IQ individuals that could shoot it pretty well, handle the ball, and finish plays in the paint. And I think that this type of offense is going to be consistent between last year and this year with their pace, their spacing, their flow. And I think things that could change are more just having guys in different spots. Seeing Bruce Brown or Jarace Walker at the 5 rather than a traditional 5-man. Seeing more big lineups maybe where Miles Turner can be featured more on the perimeter instead of just 5-out situations and always having to find the porch. Just having variety within the same flow and system by putting different personnel in these spots will be big time. And I think what I'm looking forward to most from them next season, along with the growth of Tyrese Halliburton and Ben Marthurin in particular, because those two guys have a chance to be very special in this league, and the offense that Rick Carlisle has assembled and put together amplifies those strengths and will definitely be massive in their success moving forward as individuals and as a team for Indiana. And I think next season the Pacers have a legitimate chance at being a top 5 to 10 offense in the league with their pace, their spacing, their connectivity, the way the ball moves, the way that they play together. They have a chance to be really special at this end. Now to flip things and talk about the defensive end of the floor, they were not very good last season. A 117.1 defensive rating. They gave up 55% effective field goal percentage, but they forced turnovers and made plays happen. So let's dive into the film and see what we can expect from them next season. So to start things off, let's talk about the shell or base of the defense that Rick Carlisle has used last season. So primarily, it's a one-on-one high-pressure defense. The ball is responsible for a lot in terms of how they guard. You can see the gaps. Their role is to be in the passing lane or just below the passing lane to make passes out more difficult. The gaps don't necessarily help often. They'll stab at the ball, make plays that way. And then in terms of the help side, help is from the low man. Yes, there are exceptions. We'll talk about those exceptions, but help is from the low man, and there's no help out of the strong side corner just to prevent passes out and make that more difficult and challenging. But overall, at the end of the day, it's a one-on-one high-pressure defense trying to make passes out more difficult, force a lot of mid-range shots, which they did last season, and it was a pretty solid defense for the most part. But when help is necessary, you can see in these upcoming clips that it is from the low man. The weak side of the floor loads the box a little bit. They zone up in a way that denies passes and makes passes more challenging and makes the offense have to make the toughest pass possible, which is typically cross court to the corner or cross court to the 45, just making them have to do that play rather than make the easy pass right behind them or just get right to the rim. There is help at the rim from the low man. They load early at times, but overall that next pass out is nearly impossible because of the positioning. They try to deny that and make that as difficult as possible, and then the low man loads early, provides opportunity to zone up and make passes to the opposite side of the floor more difficult and challenging. So in terms of exceptions, it's the big men. They like the big men having the ability to roam, especially having Myles Turner and Isaiah Jackson, two really high-level shot blockers. They have the ability to roam the floor, find cracks and openings when they have the opportunity to be that primary helper, block shots, impact shots at the rim. And it's a big part of them being successful as individuals in the NBA. Myles Turner was one of the best shot blockers, and he's a top 5 Indiana Pacer in shot blockers, if I'm not mistaken. And Isaiah Jackson is an elite athlete around the hoop, contesting shots, blocking shots, and just making things difficult down there. But at the end of the day, they're highly connected and rotating. We'll talk more about the switching. On the help side, they like switching just to maintain the denial and make it more difficult for passes out. And the connectivity, the energy that they bring was not that consistent, but the glimpses that they showed that they can be a high-level defense and a team that makes a lot of things difficult for offenses. So to talk now about ball screen defense, their first and primary look is switch when possible. A lot of the times with the 5-man they didn't, but overall they loved switching ball screens 1 through 4, 1 through 5 whenever they could. Just being up into the ball, applying that pressure at the first level that they like doing and is what is part of their defensive identity, is that first level pressure. Just the way that they switch though is more over the screen, peel off, the ball gets up and activates off the screen, and then they peel off, try to get back below them to prevent that slip, easy pass over, and just getting back in front. But all the time, it's just to apply that pressure to the rock and make it more difficult for the ball handler to go make a play. And then at the end of the day, it allows them to stagnate offenses, play one-on-one, not put as many guys in actions, and just force turnovers, make plays happen. They were top 10 in turnover percentage for the opposing team, and a big reason why was because in the pick and roll, they were able to force a lot of turnovers, be highly active, deny the next passes, and just make it really stagnant for offenses in screening actions because there was no help side. There was no extra guy in the action to swing it across the floor to, just making it difficult, keeping it a 2-on-2. And then with 5 men, they like dropping them more than not. Drop coverage was definitely their go-to in terms of 5 men, and then the point of attack was a mix-up between weaking, downing, and just fighting over. But at the end of the day, the ball pressure was there regardless of the directionality of the screen. They wanted to get up into the ball. They locked and chased over the screen. On downs and weeks, they really stayed connected, jamming the ball handler, and the drop was really active. They had the Isaiah Jacksons, Myles Turners active in that drop, making plays happen and making it more difficult for offenses. But I think next season they have more versatility, more size, more length on the floor at all times. And I do think that you can be more active in switching with Isaiah Jackson, not necessarily Myles Turner, but I think next year they do have a good chance at being a higher level defense, being middle of the pack, and being a formidable team at this end of the floor. The Indiana Pacers have a chance to be highly competitive, highly talented, and just one of the most fun watches in the league next season. Their new additions of Bruce Brown, Jarace Walker, and Obi Toppin all add to what they did last season, and on top of that, Tyrese Halliburton is a true star in this league, Ben Marthurin is a budding star, and Rick Carlisle is an absolute genius. especially at the offensive end of the floor. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, learned something about the Pacers and what you can expect from them this upcoming season. For more content like this, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you in the next one.